Welcome to the Good Old Blades podcast. I am your host, Aaron Levere, and join me as we talk to other knife makers and craftsmen about anything and everything knives. Thanks again for listening in to the Good Old Blades podcast. I am your host, Aaron Levere, and I am joined by Bobby House. Bobby is a slip joint maker out of South Texas. He's a part of the Slipjoint Cartel. He's been collecting for near on 35 years now of various knives. And, I wanted to have him on the show and talk knives and get to know a little bit more about him. So, Bobby, it's a real pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Aaron. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about you outside of knives, career, family, things like that. I want to kind of give everybody a little picture about who you are and where you came from.
Well, I was raised on a large ranch in South Texas, right north of Tilden, Texas, and my father was a rancher, and subsequently, that's what I did because that's what I knew. And we farmed 600 acres, and at one time up to 18,000 acres with 800 head of cattle. So that was very time consuming, I guess you would say, and I didn't know anything but hard work. And I lost my dad in '99, and I held that together. I guess the ranching for another 7, 8 years till 2006, seven, somewhere right in there. Then moved to Pleasanton, where right down the street from Bill Ruple actually. And in the meanwhile, and in the hard times, I also got into electrical contracting business. I have a niche market for the oil field. I keep pumping units and saltwater disposals and irrigation wells. I'm a three-phase specialist, 480 volt three-phase specialist, and started collecting knives probably 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I've been friends with Bill Ruple for that long. He knew me way before I knew him, and Pat West, Ticho West, Jerry Collette, Kendall Shores, just people knife makers around there from just around the Charlotte, Pleasanton area, and that's kind of how I got into to the knife collecting, and then subsequently into the knife making. It's through Bill Ruple.
So when you were collecting knives, did you primarily collect pocket knives, or were you fixed blades too, or kind of what does your collecting experience look like?
I pretty much focused on pocket knives and slip joints because growing up as a kid, I kind of remember my grandfather carrying a Barlow, and I don't know where his knives went. I lost him in the early '70s, and so I always had a pocket knife because it was a tool on the ranch. I mean, you had to cut either bell strings, or I mean, you always had to cut something on the ranch, and I kind of gravitated towards single blades. There used to be a I brand, and it's like a serpentine trapper. It was a long, skinny blade, single blade, and I bet I've wore out 10 of those just because, cleaning deer and animal and hogs, gutting things, and it was kind of a real thin knife, and I just abused them, and that's kind of where I got my start. And then I don't know, sometime maybe in the I don't know '80s, or whenever Bill started, I had a two blade trapper from him, which I used and lost while using it in cutting strings off hay, and I always had one of his knives. And then I don't know later, of course I know Pat Ticho West all of my life as well, and I was fortunate enough to he gave me a knife, and I traded for a knife, and then I actually had him commissioned to make a knife for my father-in-law, which was a real little unique little knife, and so I've always, that's kind of, I've always had to have a knife for work, and pretty much had a slip joint. Oh, I have a few fixed blades, I have a couple of hunting knives, but that wasn't very practical for me. But I do have some hunting knives and have some nice ones too.
Yeah. When you said that you were ranching and everything like that, primarily what kind of cattle ranching were you doing for meat or for breeding, or kind of what was that?
Yeah, my father, he got on this ranch in '58, I think, and then I was born and raised there, and it was a commercial cattle ranch. It's, if you know anything about South Texas, it's It can be beautiful, but mostly it's hot and dry and harsh. Our winters, if we have 5 or 6 days of freezing weather, that's a lot. And every once in a while we've had snow. I think 3 or 4 times in my lifetime. There at the ranch or in South Texas, and we had commercial cattle, just crossbred cattle, and like I say, at one time we probably ranched 17, right at 18,000 acres between 3 or 4 places. And he was the rancher, and I liked the farming. Like we said, we dry line farmed about 600 acres, and my dad was the rancher and cattleman, and I was more farming, and I was decent at running cattle. And then I had a brother that he was a good horseman, and I was fair at horseman and rodeoed a little bit after high school. My dad didn't let us rodeo in high school, and after high school I rodeoed some, got pretty good at it, and but had to go back. Ultimately, I always had to go back to ranch and work there. And like I said, I lost him in '99 after a 6 year illness, broke hip, undetected stroke, diabetes, amputations, loss of eyesight, just a miserable death, and I held it together for my mother for, I don't know, I guess another 7 8 years, something like that, and then ultimately it just got too tough, and we got away from the cattle business.
Yeah. So during that time, did you do a lot of hunting and fishing? I know that I've seen some pictures online of some big old bucks and stuff like that you've caught. So
Yeah, yeah. I was very, very fortunate. The ranch I was raised on is about 10,000 acres, and white-tailed deer, turkey, quail, dove, everything, coons. When I was 10, 11 years old, we had a mile-and-a-half river on it, and with a hackberry bottom, and I killed I don't know how many coons and skinned them. That was my money, So, and I've killed 170, 80-inch deer off that ranch. Now I like to hogs. We had hogs that were just hogs were infested. And actually, in 1881, we built fence around about 1,000 acres of our farmland, try to keep the deer and hogs out of them. But, well, we kept the deer out successfully, but the hogs just they're nuisance. They never could keep them in, and it was always a fight. So yeah, I've hunted all my life, and now in the last probably 15 years, well, since I got off the ranch, I just kind of got away from whitetail hunting, and I really, really, really enjoy mule deer hunting, which is hunting in the western states. And my dad was very, oh, that was his passion. Yeah, we hunted there too, but at the ranch. But his passion was to go out west and kill mule deer, and he did it about every 2 or 3 years. And here it is, years later. That's about what I get to do. About every 3 years, I get to go hunting, or 2 years, I get to go hunting. And I've been to Colorado, I've been to Utah, New Mexico, Canada. Uh, I don't know, just try to go out west, because I enjoy it. Big country, I love the country.
yeah, one of my favorite hunts was going up to Wyoming and going pronghorn hunting.
Yes, I never done pronghorn, but that's a bucket list item. And since I've been wanting to do it, it's the price has gone up $500 every year. I better I need to get it done before it prices me completely
Yeah.
out. And that's another thing. We were raised pretty meager. My dad did it every 2 or 3 years, and I'd take care of the ranch, and while he went, hunting either West Texas or Colorado or something, and he killed a super large buck, probably in the mid '90s, or no, earlier than that, late '80s, in the '80s, and he didn't bring the horns back. He just brought the meat back. He said, "Oh, the rancher wanted the horns." I was like, "Pop, what were you thinking?" I do have a picture of it. It was just a big old monster deer. He said, the rancher wanted the horns. He said, "I just wanted the meat and the experience." And so I kind of catch myself, every every couple of years, I get the opportunity, and now it's all about money. Back then, it was he could go pretty reasonably, but he'd be gone. And one about '84 or something, I got drawn right on. He had 56,000 acres leased in West Texas, and he always invited me, but I always took care of things while he was gone. Just that's what we did. And I got drawn at a state land, across the fence from it, from where he hunted, and that was probably in '84, I think November '84 or something like that. So went out there and experienced with some friends of mine, and after that, every chance I got, I went. Unfortunately, I didn't ever get to go hunting with him, but I carry on his legacy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the mentality back in the day is, I want the meat for sustenance. You can keep the trophies or whatever. And
Oh yeah,
now it's like people are shooting deer just for the horn.
right.
And
And I'm kind of guilty of that, but that's my vacation. I've killed a couple of really large deer. I killed a southeastern Colorado in the plains. I killed a 217 Boone and Crockett monster mule deer, and then I think in 2015 I killed a 30-inch one, a trophy deer up in Canada. And then, but that's what I went for. I mean, I got plenty steak, and I don't have any place for. When we lived on the ranch, we had about a 12 by 14 walk-in cooler. When you go in there, I don't care if it was summer, winter, or whatever. There was half a beef hanging there. There was deer. There was hog meat. There's always something hanging there. Well, now that I'm in town, I don't have that luxury of having that. So that kind of hinders a little bit. Now, when I want a steak, I go to the meat market and I buy good ribeye, and you know I have a steak, and get deer meat from friends that I can get some backstrap or something. But so for me now, it is that trophy hunting where for him it was meat and of course the hunting. I mean, he had good friends that he went with, the camaraderie. That's what I really enjoy too.
yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people don't realize the cost involved with hunting or being on the go all the time for hunting.
It's ridiculous. Here it is. It's June right now, and like I say, we're kind of at the start of where I live in Pleasanton, 30 miles south San Antonio. From here south, it's lots and lots and lots of hunting. And I noticed it Friday when I'd been down toward Tilden, and I come in for the weekend. There, you pass I don't know how many vehicles that are double cab pickup pulling gooseneck or trailers with four wheelers, and they're going to their hunting lease. And it's just so much money involved now. And I was fortunate. I was raised on a big ranch. I didn't really have to pay for hunting. I just did it, and shot every day. Shot coyotes. We did varmints. For the wild. For our cattle. I always had a gun in right beside me, and I killed coyotes, bobcats. Bobcats not so much, but coyotes they were nuisance. They catch calves and stuff like that, and I kill white-tailed bucks every year, probably more than I probably should have. You know, the tag limit didn't really mean much to us whenever you live on that big of a ranch. And we also were very conscientious on the quality too. I killed a lot of inferior deer. We tried to raise big deer, and we didn't have high fence or anything like they have now. And back in the 70s and 80s, whenever it was kind of big deer, just kind of catching on. Well, we had trophy bucks, and but we just hunted ourselves, and we took care of it, and we may kill one good deer a year off that, and now they want to kill 25, but it's back then we just enjoyed it. We used to feed about a 9 mile circle with corn and maize, and we'd take off from the house at daylight, and we'd make about an 8 or 9 mile circle. And I knew about wherever deer was going to be, every big deer, all the quail, the turkey. They just come the road, and we did that every morning from about the first frost of the year, which are like first November, and we did it all the way till it turned spring. So I got to see a lot of animals. A lot of people didn't get to see that, and I did.
Yeah, I think it's probably important to take a pause for listeners and explain kind of how game management and stuff like that works in Texas. So, back in the 70s, 80s, even into the early 90s, bag limits and things changed and were in flux a lot because the common culture of hunting wasn't really around conservation, but more specifically around just getting what you can, right? And like on big properties and whatnot, like now you have MLD tags. So I mean, they'll just do browsing studies and everything and tell you how many approximately you can shoot on your property for management purposes. You just clear out whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's come a long ways. Back whenever I was a kid, 10, 12 years old, we used to have, they got eradicated. It's called screwworms. And it was a fly that would lay an egg on like a fresh kid on its navel, their eyes, deer when they were born, their navel, their eyes, and it'd lay a larva, and it was actually, for better word, it was just actually flesh eating, and it's called screwworms. And I remember in the '70s, airplanes used to fly over dropping these boxes, and what they were sterile screwworm flies, and that's how they eradicated them. But whenever we were talking about the hunting, we just in '74 we leased a property from Gray's Peeler, and right before he went to the rest home, and it was like 6,000 acres, and there was very, very few deer because it was just survival of the fittest. I mean, if you saw 5 or 6 deer a day, you saw a lot, and it was because of the screw worms, and it was just survival of the fittest. The biggest, healthiest deer survived, and whenever they got eradicated, I want to say, and I'm just guessing, but around 676, somewhere right in there, that program pretty much eradicated screwworms, and and then all of a sudden, the wildlife, the deer, everything flourished, and it changed the whole, I don't know, the whole aspect of deer. And then from there, then they flourished because they had some common predators, but at one time, these screwworms was devastating on herds, and then from there it's just exploded to where it is today. I mean, there's deer everywhere now. Right here, I live in town, and I have 25 deer in my front yard or backyard at any, every night. We can't hardly keep shrubs, and it's just right here in town, so you can't really kill them, shoot them here, but they're just flourishing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting with Texas ecosystems, and that's I grew up in Pennsylvania, and when I moved down here, one of the things that really interested me was the ecology of things, like the different microclimates that Texas has, and I spent some time out in East Texas hunting a lot and everything, and there's so many different microclimates, so many different animals that live here. And in one area, like deer in East Texas, you see them different places, but they have horn restrictions. So it's like a 13-inch spread, and you can only shoot one per county, all
Right.
that stuff. And
Yeah.
and the cultivation of deer through game management is a really important thing there. Whereas you go further south or further west, and you have mule deers and the uh,
Right.
in Wyoming, that was one of the things that they talked about is if we would have had mule deer tags instead of just doing draw for antelope, they would have preferred us to shoot those because there's inbreeding that goes on with regular whitetails and mule deers and creates these hybrid deer.
Yeah, they do, and it's not a desirable trait either. And it's funny, like down here in below San Antonio to the valley, west toward Uvalde and Del Rio, there's just about, I would say 85% of the ranches, and I'd say almost probably 90% or more of the large ranches, they're all deer proof fence, so they can propagate them. They can manage, like you said, the MLD. I mean, there's so many different tools now. At one time, and well, still today, like in our area, a lot of ranchers, if they didn't have hunting and charge people to hunt, they wouldn't have made it. And it was a big commodity. Charging for hunting, and come hunt on the property, and if you had bigger deer, you could charge more. Well, now in the last 11 years, I guess we had the Eagleford oil boom come through from Laredo, all the way to North Houston to like Hallettsville College Station. It's like 200 miles long and maybe about 65 miles wide, and that just changed everything because now if you had royalties on your land, even if you had 200 or 300 acres, where you're all of a sudden sometimes you're a millionaire on just a couple of hundred acres. And if I have a good friend of mine, he has over 70,000 acres of royalties. And back whenever when didn't have the oil, well, he was just getting by. He had I don't know how many hunters on his property and cattle, and they had to make money any way they can. And now, he's super flush, and hunting. He still has hunters on his property, but it's not. He doesn't have to have them on his property anymore, and that has changed in the last 10 years, But now it's all about high fences, game management, high quality deer. You can come down here and out of some place you can come down here and kill a 240, 50-inch Boone and Crockett, big deer, and they're just they're raised. They're not. Some of them are native, but most of them are propagated. And I don't care for that. But hey, whatever someone likes, that's fine with me too. But when I was raised on the ranch, it's 10,000 acres, low fence. We did have 1,000 acres of farmland, high fence, keep deer out. But it was just if I knew where a buck lived, I went and hunted that specific buck, and whether I got him or not, I had to go to him, and it wasn't like he could travel and he could move. And it was fun times. I was very fortunate to grow up in a real good era.
Yeah. Have you ever, being out in the South Texas area, have you ever hunted nilgai at all?
No, I haven't, and that's another one on his bucket list, and that's further south. That starts about Kingsville, Heavenville, all the way into the valley, and there's huge ranch, like of course the King Ranch, Utera, Jones Ranch. There's some huge ranches down there, and they're a species that was introduced from India, and they're very prolific. They're actually an antelope, and the meat is fabulous. It's low, no cholesterol, very little fat on it, and just like red meat, kind of like beef, but it's just fabulous meat. But I hadn't had that opportunity. I like to though, but that's probably 50 miles south of me. Where it starts. But they said it's a very, very fun, challenging hunt because they're wild. They see you and they just run. They call them and in Spanish they call them devil's horse, because they have little short horns and they're kind of like a horse, but I don't know, they're an odd animal. But that's when I go down there and work on some of those big ranches. I see them a lot. They're very prolific.
Yeah. Well, that's I got, so Laguna Atascosa, down there, the natural wildlife
Mm-hmm.
preserve, they have a
Right.
native ocelot, like, population, but they're one of the few
Right.
places that actually try to have habitat and maintain it for ocelots to breed. And every year they have draw hunts for bow and rifle where you can go in and it's unlimited nilgai. And sometimes if you do a bow or rifle hunt for whitetail, they'll include nilgai as an unlimited. So you'll have like a tag for a buck, and you can go down there and hunt as many nilgai as you can find. And I got drawn one year, and we went down, and a buddy shot a decent sized blue, and I shot a cow, and it was everything I could do to get that thing skinned up, and that's actually what got me into knives.
Oh no, they're huge. They're huge. They're a huge animal. Like you kill a bull, or blue bull, they may not have a 9 or 10 inch. I think 9 inch plus or is a trophy horns, but it may weigh 900 pounds. They're huge animal or even bigger. They're more like they're not built like an elk, but they're more of that size. They're huge, like a horse in a way. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, the thing is what I found about the meat that I really liked, and it's actually I prefer nilgai over beef, because something about the meat profile and I guess how they graze and everything, it takes flavor so much better. So like if you dress it out and you get some roasts and stuff, you throw that in the slow cooker and everything, the same as you would beef, and it just takes that flavor so much better than a beef roast does.
It's awesome. I mean, anytime you can take that back strap and it's like 5 inches bigger around, oh my gosh, it is. I mean, deer back strap is my favorite, and pork is very good. The wild, see, we used to eat this ton of wild hogs because they eat our Milo, they eat our corn, and 90%, they're pretty fat, and they do real well. They're very prolific. They have 3.5 litters a year, so they just keep. I mean, I don't care what if you shoot them now. Now there's a big deal. It's kind of expensive to do, but they get a you get a helicopter and you shoot them out of a helicopter to try to eradicate them, but you can't stay ahead of them. They're up in Oklahoma now. They're in New Mexico. They're everywhere. They're prolific. But we used to eat a lot of hog meat. There's nothing better than killing about 120-pound hog. And either do, my mother used to call them the little gold medallions, the little back straps, and the deer back strap, and that's where that Neil guy is just phenomenal meat.
Yeah, I think the best hog that I ever had was I I work in IT, so I was in this corporate environment, and they decided that we wanted to take everybody for a team building exercise to this place. It's an archery place up here called Cinnamon Creek Ranch, and they went out that day and killed a small like suckling hog, or it's a
Right.
little bit bigger than that, and slow smoked it.
Oh
But what
man.
they did is they cleaned it out and they put jambalaya inside of it
Oh
and
man.
then wrapped it in they wrapped it in tinfoil and
Right.
then smoked it and everything. By the time we got to it after this like archery stuff that we were doing, it was like phenomenal. It was like the best hog that I've ever had prepared. And the jambalaya was phenomenal because it was basically soaked in bacon grease
Yes.
of all things.
That's fact. Yeah. That you just can't hardly mess it up if it's the right cut of meat. Now, if it was a stinking boar or something not taken care of, and processing, well, that's everything. That doesn't cook well. But boy, if you take care of it and it's got a little fat on it, there's nothing better than hog ribs. I mean, oh my gosh, now you get me hungry. Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. I
Yeah.
was like, how can I get this done?
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to pull some of your ranch connections to see if you can do some nilgai hunting, and then just buy a big freezer and just throw all your
Yeah,
nilgai in it.
yeah. Because I ranched all my life, and of course, we entertained, we invited people, and I've got a half, I got a bunch of people that owns ranches, but I kind of, I don't know if it's just because of who I am or what, but I kind of don't. If I get invited to go hunting, I'll go. But if I don't invite myself, and I have people that has tens of thousands of acres, and I just don't do that. If they say, hey, let's go dove hunting, or hey, let's go quail hunting, or you want to come shoot a deer, yeah, I'll be all over that. But as far as me just saying, hey, I want to go do it, I tend not to do that, just out of respect, I guess. That's just me. But,
Yeah.
because whenever you go on someone else's property, I mean, they're liable for you, and I mean, there's some ramifications come with you go and visiting on other people, and that's another industry. A lot of these people now that they become pretty well off because of the royalties and the oil. They don't want anyone on their property for legalities, or liabilities, and I get it. Suddenly they're worth millions of dollars, and you have someone come in and get hurt or get shot or get crippled on their property. Well, you know what happens? They want to sue. And that's unfortunate. And that's one of the things that's changed changed hunting too. I mean, it's all about money now. And it's kind of sad in a way, but it is what it is. There's more people in the world, and it's a sport that few can get done. Do anymore. A friend of mine, he's a petroleum engineer, and he lives up in San Antonio, and he was fortunate enough to raise and go hunting, and he has three boys. I think they're about oldest one's about 8, and he's got on a lease west of Tilden at Fullerton, and it's probably about 8,000 acres, I guess. And he has to pay full price, and he can bring his kids, and he wants to subject to it. But he's spending 8 to 10,000 just so they can have a place to, where they can go fish, hunt, see quail, see animals. And it's just a luxury that very few can afford anymore. Sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the when I was I had a lease down in Pollock by Wells and Nacogdoches area,
Okay.
and the all those the East Texas deer, like you can get whatever the tag limit is, so 113 inch and I think two doe during two doe and like a spike, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the lease alone was $1,000, and every time I had to drive down there, it was 4 hours one way.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
and you have to go several times, clear your shooting lanes, put
Oh
up
yeah.
your whatever blind stuff. By the time that everything was said and done, I could have $4,000 or $5,000 in a season because the only thing that you could really do is hunt hog to clear them to try to chase them away from
Yeah.
the feeders and whatnot,
Right.
and whatever deer. And I'd have people come up like, they find out that you have a hunting lease, and then they're your best friends,
Yeah.
and want to invite themselves along. And and I told them, like, kindly no, unless you're wanting to pay for a portion of this or come down and do some work. And then they think that you're in this like good old boys club because you're hunting and they're not. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's really not. It's just about the economics of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be more than because you couldn't share your tags either. Like if somebody came down on the lease, then they'd have to hunt off your tags.
Yeah.
So unless they wanted to just do hog,
Yeah.
that was it.
It's changed. It's the whole industry's changed. I have two friends that they make extremely good money and business by selling hunting blinds and feeders. I mean, they are just. I mean, they sell all over the United States now. And it's just a big. I mean, they probably that one friend of mine. She probably does about 8 million a year gross. It's just a huge. They manufacture it all and they sell them here locally. They sell them in state, out of state, all the way to Florida. It's just a huge industry now. Where 25 years ago it wasn't, but it is now.
Yeah. So you also fish too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was raised, fishing. Like say, there on that ranch I was raised on, we had a mile and a half. It was just everyone called it a creek, but when I was young, in the summertime it'd run ankle deep with a lot of holes, clear water, and in the wintertime it'd run about knee deep. And I caught 40-pound catfish in there. I caught bass, crappie, everything in the world in there. And now it's very sad now. Of course, I've been off the ranch for a long time, but it's dry. I don't know if the tributaries, the irrigation above it, it's dry. There's no more water. I mean, yeah, when it rains it'll run, but I was fortunate enough when I was a kid, that thing run 24/7. For years and years and years, and I got to fish a lot there, and then we had some property on the it was kind of unique. Choke Canyon Reservoir down in Three Rivers, and between Tilden and Three Rivers, there's 27,000 acres when it's full, and we lost some property to it. My family lost a little bit of property to it. We're the last ranch to get kind of had some land taken away from by the state, and so I lived on the actually on the lake, and they didn't close the gates, so I just used it like as my own and be on the river and catfish and bass fish, crappie fish, and then I've been away. I moved off that in probably mid '90s, and the lake's still there. It's about 30. I think it's like 35% full. But it's still a beautiful lake. Got a real good bass fishing and crappie fish and catfish and clear. Fairly clear. And then, but I like to go to the coast, bay fishing, redfish and trout. That's kind of my if I could go tomorrow, that's what I'd go do is go to the coast. Probably about 95 miles from the coast. Corpus Christi area, Rockport. You know, so I really enjoy the fishing. But like I say, the older I get, the less time I have. So I do it 2 3 times a year and enjoy it. And back to the grind.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to always take that time to do things that you love. I honestly, what got me slowed down on hunting and fishing is that my daughter is a heart transplant
Oh
recipient. She had
wow.
one when she was 3, and one thing that we found out is that all forms of deer, deer, elk, moose, uh, everything like that, all carry this parasite, and it sits in like little cysts inside of its meat and everything. And when you eat it, the average person that has a decent immune system, the most that they'll get is these cysts that will just stay in their body dormant forever because your body fights it off. But in immunocompromised people, the cysts actually can grow into brain lesions.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and 95% of the population of all deer have the same thing in it. So they're like, well, instantaneously, as soon as she became immunocompromised with her suppression and everything, she couldn't eat any game meat. And so I'm like, like I used to really feel that hunting and fishing was a way of me being able to supplement for my family. And even though it was kind of costly at times, there was lots of times where it was very economical for me to go out and hunt on public land and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like when we lived at the ranch, I mean, that's what we lived on. We lived in the wintertime, we lived on deer meat and hog meat, and sometime hog meat, and we butchered our own cattle, and I mean, that was our protein. We didn't buy any beef from town, you know. A little bit, if I caught fish, we fish, but we didn't buy any like meat protein from town. So that's wild what's going on with her.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, and at that point, it was kind of like, if she can't eat it and it can't be part of this like family thing, like we always have to keep her separate from that, then I just don't really want to have it around too
You're
much.
right. Right.
Because I used to take all my own game and everything, and then I would process it all. So I was making summer sausage and breakfast sausage
Right.
and cutting
All the good
everything up.
stuff.
So I mean, yeah, yeah, everything from soup to nuts. That's what I was processing it all down and making various things. So it just got to a point where I was like, I don't, my heart wasn't in it because my heart is my child, and so we've kind of worked around that. But the early knife exposure that I had was in all these failing knives because I was hunting and fishing all the time, and just like I can't tell you how many sets of knives and things I'd go through just buying cheaper stuff when I probably should have bought like a real high quality one, but I just didn't have four,
Right.
five, $600 to spend at the time. And then I was like, man, I can make it. So I started making them, and it turned into what this thing is today, which I probably should have just stuck with buying a nicer knife.
It's
But
an obsession, isn't it?
yeah, well, and I think that's probably the thing that I really enjoy about it is there's always something to learn, and the culture around knives and knife collecting is just right up my alley. Like I think that the more people I talk to about knives and what got them into it, the more I realize that there's a common thread, and it really starts with where you grew up. The old timers, like your grandparents and great grandparents, using them as tools,
Sure.
and then imparting that same kind of nostalgia down to their kids. And I'm reminded. So you'd been collecting knives for a long time. You knew Bill Ruple and everything, but what actually caused you to go into making knives? Because you've been making knives for 5 or so years now, right?
Well, you know, I'm not trying to get sentimental, but it's pretty near and dear to my heart. Bill had been trying to get me to build knives for years. I'm talking about for 15 years or so. I go by his shop when he's in Charlotte, and I just stop in there. I live another 25 miles away, and I just stop in there and visit him, and whether I had something I could buy from him or something, and he actually, when I rode a Harley, he made me some forward controls. He milled out some forward controls for me. So we're just always good friends, as well as Pat West, and I just started. I always carried a knife, and picked up some from him, like and Pat West taught Bill. Pat was he was taught himself probably 42 years ago or something like that. He just bought knives, tore them apart, had no square wheel Wilton that was one speed wide open, and he made this phenomenal. I've got three of them. Phenomenal, super super thin dovetail bolsters, nickel silver usually. He did file work down the spine of the knife and the blade, and they were just exquisite knives. Of course, he got better and better and better. And he used to sell those things just to make a living because he's a poor rancher, and just trying to get his kids fed. And I think he had about 4 or 5 thousand acres, and just not enough really to make a living. But so he started making them, and of course you see one of them, you just go like, "Wow, look at that!" And of course him, and I acquired two or three of those, and then he taught Bill Ruple how to make knives, so I started acquiring them from Bill. He taught Jerry Collette. Jerry was living there in Charlotte. Jerry makes a great knife. He didn't he makes a great knife and he does file work, but he never did the show world like Bill. Bill just started taking off and going to shows, and he'd go home, and Pat would say, "Well, what'd you learn? What'd you see? What's out there?" And Pat never did do the show world, and nor did Jerry. And so Bill become the information piece to Pat, what's going on, and Pat just got better and better at his works, and like I say, I was fortunate enough to. I think I have three of his knives, and I don't know. I probably have 6 or 8 of, or maybe more of Bill's and Jerry's. I got 3 or 4 of his, and then Pat also taught a young man named Kendall Shorsh. Kendall's about 44 now. He taught him just like he taught Bill, and Kendall is a phenomenal maker. He does just exquisite file work. He liked to be a jeweler, is what he liked to be, but he's a great knife maker. But he hadn't made knives in about 3 years, and he's got kids in high school, one going off college. I saw him today, and so I just started picking up knives, and of course, once you have a custom knife, you don't, you don't turn back to the other ones. But I have some Great Eastern cutleries. I have some case. Here recently, I've gotten these. I don't have any Cataratas, but I've got Camillus, and I follow Joe Culpepper. He has auctions on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I buy some knives off there. But so I just got to start. I just was collecting forever, and then Bill, he hounded on me, and then when I moved down the street, probably been here 12 years. He was down the. We live on Bryan Drive in Pleasanton, Texas, and I'd stop by there 2 or 3 times a week, see what he's working on. He said, "When you gonna start? When you gonna start?" I said, "Bill, one of these days, and it takes time and money, and it seemed like my time is limited." And I guess in 6 years ago, after we moved off the ranch, 10 years, I moved my mother, bought her a real nice, beautiful little house in Jordanton, and she got gardener of the year when she was 84, and she had a light stroke, and right after that, and kind of lost her eyesight. So we moved her into like a assisted living, I guess you'd call it, not nursing home, but assisted living, and she lived another 5 years. And when I lost her, which was 6 years ago, I lost her, and I'm the baby of the family. I was taking care of her, and I got in a real bad depression. And Bill saw that. I take this. Bill saw that, and he reached out to me and kind of got me, I guess, mentally back where I need to be. And I went with him to Blade. I think that was in 19. We went to Blade, and he just invited me to stay with me, and I went to Blade, and of course, when I went to Blade, it just opened my eyes to the actual knife world. I've just been a collector down here, but when you go to Blade, there's 1,000 tables, and I didn't even see Bill much. I just wandered around, and I met people like that year. I didn't even know him. I met Tim Robertson. I met Evan Nicolaitis, and gosh, Tony Bowes, and I met a bunch of people on my own. Not introduced to them. I just said I love your knives and stuff, and so I guess after that I kind of thought about making knives, and the next year Toby Hill got me to make a knife, and we because they call it knife makers meeting over here at Bill's. There'd be 4 or 5 people. There's about 9 of us, I guess, here in Pleasanton that make knives, and we'd have meetings, and we'd visit and stuff. And I was just collecting, and then I started got it on my mind, and then Toby, I made a knife at Toby's shop, and it was one of the 13 that we presented to Bill Ruple at Blade. And from there, after I built the first knife, everyone said, "Well, come over to my shop and build one." So I said, "No." It took me about a year and a month, I think, year and a month to put all my shop together and all my materials and my grinders. And I bought a Northridge grinder from George Delory, and I just put everything together. And they kid me. They call me Half Price Bob because I'm not a man of means. I found the best equipment I could for the money I could afford. And so I put a shop together, and I made my second knife in my shop, and I have that knife in uh, uh, my on my vault. And the first knife Bill Ruple has, and then from there I just took off, and I've been very, very fortunate to have the eye and I guess the talent to do it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have to say, like I can't say that I've ever met kinder, more gentle, understanding people than the knife world. And I've lived in a lot of different groups of people and things in my lifetime so far. And it seems like in a lot of the troubles that my family has had and everything, losing a stepson to a motorcycle accident, and Sissy having her heart transplant and everything like that. Uh, it seems like all that has kind of happened around knives, and everybody is just so warm and willing to help. We lost a granddaughter last year. She was born premature, and everybody encircled us and helped us out and everything. And I think that I'm incredibly loyal to people like that, because I don't think that I really necessarily came from a great upbringing, family feuds and things like that. So the tribe is basically who you choose, not necessarily who you're born into.
I think you're right, and like I say, Bill knew I was in a bad way, and he really, really helped me out by getting me into knife making. And he always said, "Well, you're going to be a great knife maker one of these days." And I was like, "Well, Bill, I got to make one before I can do that." And he encouraged me for probably 15 years or longer, and it finally all come together, and I made a conscious decision to do it, and it's probably been one of the better decisions of my life, because it's something I can do. Yeah, there's a little bit of financial gain from it. Everyone thinks, "Oh gosh, you're selling $1,000 knives. You're just killing it." Well, they don't see that 12 hours I spend in there, working on it, and the material I buy, and the thousands of dollars of handle materials I have, and the stag, the mammoth that I have, and the Micarta. They don't see that. They just think that I just hand out a knife, and I want this money for them. There's a lot more to it. And that's where I was really, really very fortunate. And Bill says it's because I handled his knives, different knives. I knew what I liked, and I was very, very fortunate just to accelerate, and also because who I'm around. I mean, right here in Pleasanton, Bill's 10 houses down from me. Toby Hill's about a mile from me. Bubba Crouch is about 5 miles from me. Kendall Shorts is 4 or 5 miles from me. Tanner Couch is on South End McMullen. He's 40 miles away from me. And Tanner and I are real, real good, close friends. And Jeff Hawkins is over in Somerset, which is 20 miles away. Another boy named Roan West, which is Ticho's nephew. He's been making knives, and he's in Charlotte, and there's still 3 or 4 others. Trey Genzel's here, and when we started the Slipjoint Cartel, it's just a bunch of friends, and we kind of started that. That was kind of Bubba Crouch and Bill Ruple's kind of brainchild, more so Bubba, and I think there's 16 of us in it, and Ricky Pena's 100 miles away, and Ricky's part of it. Now Tim Robertson is, Tom Plopper, Luke Swenson. Luke at one time I always used to see this little Toyota pickup at Bill's, and I'd stop in there, and this redheaded guy was in there, and he didn't say a whole lot. And got to know him a little bit. He was a fireman from San Antonio. Well, he spent a lot of time at Bill's learning how to make knives, and that's probably Bill's number one protege. Because hell, he's won best slip joint, and I think 4 of the last 5 blade shows. Just phenomenal. Well, he moved to Idaho, and Bert Flanagan's up in Whitehurst or somewhere up there north of Fort Worth, and Tyler Turner, he's in Hopkins, Missouri. He's a member. He's phenomenal. That kid is he's above us on building, but he likes kind of Art Deco kind of knives. He's phenomenal. So when we all come together, and Rusty Preston was one, and now Phil Jacobs is kind of replaced Rusty. Rusty quit making knives here about a year ago. Just kind of gave up on it, and it's sad. But he had his time. I think Rusty's in his high 70s now. But and we just formed this cartel, and we lean on each other, we rib each other, or we give each other a lot of hell, but we also compliment each other and bring the best out in each other as well. And that's where I think I'm exposed to 5 or 6 makers right here, and each one has a little different abilities, I guess you'd say, as well as I. So whenever you combine 5 or 6, 7 knife makers within a few miles of you, you don't really have a problem. You can get your problem fixed. If you have questions, someone's going to tell you in a constructive way. So
Yeah, and I think that's a part of the picture that I'm trying to paint is to understand the next thing that we're going to get into, which is the Slipjoint Cartel. But basically, it's like suffice it to say that the Slipjoint Cartel is a group of family.
it really
That's really
is.
what it comes
It
down
really
to.
is. Like Enrique Pena, I think Enrique and Bill met at Johnny Stout's up in New Braunfels, so 20 years ago or whatever. And Enrique I think he worked for Holt. He was a diesel mechanic, and then he come to Bill's, and maybe I shouldn't be telling a story, but this is story. I mean, and Ricky came to Bill's shop right here down the street from me, and took a 1 day or maybe a 2 day lesson, and then 2 weeks later he come back and Bill said, "Oh my gosh, he built a better knife than I did." And Ricky just has that talent. He has then I mean, he started making grinders. He made some horizontal grinders. I think Bill still uses one of his uh, vertical grinders today, and he got to making grinders. And then we all know where Enrique went. Well, Enrique calls Bill his dad. Love you, Dad. And all that and I think Enrique was in kind of a bad place in life too. Whenever Bill taught him, and and Ricky's a phenom. I mean, he's taken it to a level above and beyond. Because of the commercial stuff and what he's making now. But we're all family. I mean, I can call in Ricky right now, and he's going to answer the phone. We can talk over business or hardships or whatever, and we can do that with all of our cartel members. And one of the things that Bill has instilled in us, he, I really, I, I'm a student of Bill's, but I I don't know. I never went down there and just took a class. I'll go down there and I'll watch him do something, and he'll say, "Look what I'm doing now," or something like that. But as far as me just going in there for 8 hours, I've never done that, and I never have done it in any other shop either. I just pick up bits and pieces, and just know how it started and trial and error. But if I get in a jam, I can go down to Bill's, or I can go to Bubba's, or I can go to Toby's, and it's so convenient, and like I say, it's like a big family. And like one of the things that Bill and I guess he just wanted to be known that we'll help anyone. If you or someone else, and there's a kid in North Carolina I've been talking to a lot. He stopped me at Blade and stopped me and Tanner and said, "Hey, I want you mind looking at some of my knives?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Now don't hold back. Tell me what's wrong with them." And he showed us about 3 or 4 knives. And just a fine kid, Grayson. I can't think of his last name. He's on Facebook. No, it left me. But anyway, so we mulled him over, and we told him what was right. We told him what was wrong. We complimented him. We told him not to do this, and that's kind of one of the things that Bill has taught us. He said your knowledge is free. If someone wants to learn, show them. Or and I think every one of us is doing that. Oh, if we have a folder class, you pay to come and take my time. Well, that's something different. But if you want to call and just say, "Hey, I got this problem," we're going to try to help you out. We want you to be the best maker you can be, and that's what kind of the cartel is. We're full of knowledge, and we share a lot of knowledge, and we're just very fortunate.
Yeah. So, do you remember like when when the beginning of the cartel actually was, from a date perspective?
I don't have that picture in front of me, but we pretty much formed it a couple of months right before we give Bill that presentation. And I want to say that was in 19. It might have been 18, but I don't have that picture in front of me, and time eludes me. I can't remember yesterday, but we there's 13 of us. We all built a one knife in a single blade trapper in the way Bill kind of taught us. And like I say, I built my knife in Toby's shop, and I'd been with Bill the year before, and I'd bought some stag. I was in the process of putting my shop together, and I had a bunch of stag and different handle materials that I'd bought in the year before, and I built this, with under Toby's watchful eye, and I did all the grinds, and he showed me how to fit it all up, and that was my very first knife, and there was 13 of us, and that's whenever the cartel was born. And like I said, it's kind of a brainchild of Bubba Crouch. We presented Bill with those 13 knives and plaque and appreciation, and heck, he has them in his living room. It's got a shadow box with 13 knives in it and the plaque of our appreciation. And that's right before that's when we all put it together, and that's when we formed a cartel per se. And like I said, it's just friends. And they wanted to make it slip joint, South Texas Slipjoint Cartel, and we just call it the Slipjoint Cartel now. Because we do have Tom Ploppert's in Alabama, uh, Tim Robertson is in Oklahoma, Tyler Turner's in Hopkins, Nebraska, Missouri, excuse me, and like I say, Luke Swinson moved to Idaho. Bert's in North Texas, and then the rest of us, and Ricky's in Laredo. So the rest of us are here pretty local. So I think there's 16 of us now, and like I say, Rusty Preston, he just kind of quit making knives. He's part of the group, but he just quit making knives due to his age and his health. And that's how it kind of was born. And it's all off because of Bill Ruple, really, because he's the one that taught us. He's the one that mentored us in life as well as for me. I'm forever in debt to him. And like I say, his son lived at the ranch. Oh, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, and so I've known him all my life. And of course with the Ticho Pat West connection, I've known that guy. And 2 years ago, that's a kind of a different story. But 2 years ago, right before Blade, and I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but Ticho contacted me. His son has three of my knives, and son, they're working cattle and cutting calves, castrating calves. He got to look and he asked his son Sam. He said, "Sam, what knife is that?" He said, "Oh, it's a Bobby House knife." And he said, "Let me see that thing." And he looked at it, and well, subsequently he called me, and of course we have each other's number. And he called. He said, "Hey, Bobby, how you doing?" And he went, we did pleasantries. And he said, "I want to order a knife from you." I was like, oh my gosh, this is the godfather of slip joints, taught himself, he's asking me to build a knife. And I'm just like, oh no. And he said, well, come out to the house. I said, what do you want? He said, well, you made that semi trapper kind of blunt nose. Yeah, I said, I like making that knife. I said, come out to the house one day and we'll talk about it. So a few days went by, and it's right before Blade 2 years ago. And I said, well, I'm busy at Blade. I said, I'll just have to, get on it when I get it. Oh, yeah, that's fine. So I went out to his house, and he has a little better shop than what he did have. And he was in a walker. He has throat cancer, and that's 2 years ago, and he wasn't in real good health. And we sat down there and we talked probably 2 hours, just catching up and, just over everything, knives and what have you. And he got out a big Proto toolbox, probably 16, 18 inch long, opened it up, and it's full of material. Right there on the very top, there's a piece of Usyk. I said, is that what I think it is? Yeah, I've had that for 15 years or 20 years. And I said, well, that's kind of hard to come by. And, we just talking, and he said, well, and then he drug out some micarta, and it was, he said, this is barbed wire micarta. He said, I want you to make this knife out of this handle material. I looked at it, and it was neat, and it was a 3/1 weave. And he said, "Yeah, we used to get this from Texas Knife Maker Supplies for $5 a set back in the day." He's talking about 30 years ago. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'll try to." And he said, "Well," he said, "do your best." So, and he said, and take this whole box too, which it had probably, I don't know, that Usyk was probably worth $400 or $500. And it had, I don't know how many sets of this, and all kind of stuff. And he told me, Stag, it had a little bit of everything. He said, I'm not going to build anymore because he quit after he was lucky enough to have his property drilled up, for oil, and he got healed up financially, and he just quit building. And so I took it home. Long story short, I went to Blade. That was the first knife after Blade, which would have been this 23, 22. So I've been 21, and I started on this, and lo and behold, everything worked. The handle material worked, the knife worked. I didn't have any problems. I mean, it was like heaven sent. And I made just a beautiful knife, just a single blade trapper with that big front end, like a semi trapper. Uh, I would call it a semi skinner point on it, and that's something that Tanner Couch kind of come up with, and I love it. And so I called him and said, "Well, I got your knife made." And he said, "Well, good." He said, "I said, when do you want me to deliver it to you?" He said, "Oh no, I want to come to your shop." And I was like, "Okay." So we made a date like later in the week on a Wednesday or whatever. And so he had his wife come in. He was in a little better shape. He walked into my shop, which is an old pool house. I have a 178 square foot shop that I work out of. It's like a little pool house shop. Got everything stacked in there, and he come in there and sat, and like I say, there we go. But another hour and a half, 2 hours later, I showed him the knife, and we visited, and he looked it over, and he got real quiet, and he looked at it, and he looked at it, and I said, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "I don't think anyone else could have did a good job as you did on it." And oh my gosh, you talk about, I don't know, it just struck me, and damn, I went to cry, and it was it was a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can definitely tell that there's a lot of sentiment and a lot of heart that's put into your knives and your relationships and everything. And it's to me, it's not a wonder that in the shorter period of time that you've been making knives that you've excelled so much. Not only because you have a lot of giants that you're resting on their shoulders, but just because genuinely you're an intelligent, heartfelt, and tactical and technical type of guy. Like I mean, all of that to me just makes a lot of sense. Like as to like what we have seen on the periphery about Bobby House becoming a household name, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, and like I say, I kind of joke to myself and my friends. I can barely whistle. I cannot carry a tune. I can't. I'm not musically inclined. Bill plays guitar and he's musically inclined. I can't do any of that. I can't draw. I can barely speak, and it's God sent that I can build a knife, like I said, he said it's because I collected for so many years. I know what they're supposed to look like, but the grinding, I never did any machine work in my life. I've welded, and I've fabricated stuff all my life because we had to on the ranch. If something broke, we rebuilt it, or we made it, and so it's been very humbling to me, to have so many people come to me. It's like, oh, your stuff's so nice, or so beautiful. And I'm just going like, it just flabbergasts me that I can do it, and it's in a way it's God sent because, like I say, I was in a very good time in my life, and come to me, and I excelled, and it's something I can do. I'm not a great thinker out of the box, like out way out, like I start something, it kind of morphs in there. I know where it wants to go, but I can't say, okay, I'm going to build this knife that's going to look like this, and this when I start. I just kind of take what he gives me, and that's kind of the saying on Stag. You take what Stag gives you because I love working with Stag. That's my favorite, and every piece is different. It's hard to get a match set on side to side, and you only get what it gives you, and you gotta make do with that, And I've been fortunate not to throw many handles away. I don't know if I've thrown any knives away. Everyone I've made, fortunately, has pretty much worked out. Toby Hill has one of my few knives that it just the blade laid over and never could get it straight, and it was a super, super, super thin knife, and 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 he treasured it. I gave it to Toby. He helped me make my first one, and that was probably one of my 20th or 30th knives, and just it just had a little flaw in it. It just didn't set right. And he carries it every day, so it's very humbling, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, in addition with going to shows and making knives, you also donate knives for good causes and auctions to raise money for charitable works and stuff
You
like that
know,
too. That I've seen.
we do that. Slip joint. Just about every one of us in the cartel does that in different ways. Bill's always done that, and he usually gives, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but he usually gives a kid a knife every year somewhere. And and like I think I did three two donation knives this past year, and one of them was a I don't you'd call it a donation knife, but it was a commission knife. I told them I'll make it for X amount of dollars, which is about half of what I'd get for it, and then they put it for auction. Well, the last one that I did that for, I think I don't know. I traded some tickets to an event, and they paid me, like I say, not what the knife was worth, but the knife brought $5,000. And you just go like, how in the world does this happen? I make a knife, and then it was, of course, it was a benefit auction. And Tanner's been guilty of that. He did one a year ago that was Tiffany blue, and it brought 5,300 or 5,500. And Bill's knives at those events, they bring 3,000. It's amazing. And Bill lost his brother about 5 years ago or 6 years ago to a heart attack, and knew that it was kind of happening. And after that, he was big, and he was a real estate agent and had deer and stuff, and real estate broker. And then Trinity Oaks, his sons tried to put on a benefit, and they called it the Joe Ruple Memorial. And it was a dove hunt, and then they had a live auction afterward to raise funds for Trinity Oaks. And Trinity Oaks takes deer meat. They take terminally ill kids, take them hunting on their, whatever kind of hunt they want to go on. And it's a great charity. And I don't know if I was building knives then, but anyway, I made a divot tool, and I think there's eight of us. Eight took knives, and I think I made a real high end divot tool. Well, before that night was over, we raised a little over $23,000 on those eight items. And that was all donation, and it went to a super good cause. So yeah, we do try to help the community and help the needy, as and just that's part of what we do.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. What did you think of last year, Bill getting inducted into the Cutlery Hall of Fame?
Oh, it was amazing. That year that we gave him the knives, the 13 knives. He got that. Pardon me, the Enzo Award, which is for teaching, being a I don't know I don't know the exact terminology, but was it Aldo Enzo or something like that? Dino Enzo or something like that. He got that award 5 years ago, I guess, and we gave him. He just was amazed by it. And then there was a little bit of rumors 2 years ago that or 2.5 years ago, before Tony passed. There's we have a little bit of inside connection with Blade, some of the people, and I won't go into that, but we kind of know what's happening in the world before a lot of people do it. And it was, and of course he knew that he was got in, that he was nominated. He didn't know if he'd get inducted, and of course we had, I don't know, there's probably about 40, all of his family and all of us knife makers, every one of us made it, to the ceremonies that Saturday morning. And it couldn't be a better fit for Bill, because he is, last 35 years of lives has been around knives. He made a living doing it. He helps everyone. He's such a great ambassador for the knife making world. And like I say, knowledge is free. He'll help anyone. He donates. He's the epitome of a of a good, I guess, knife maker with everyone, with the public. And he'll talk to anyone. And of course, he that's a cherry on top of a career. And he also said, matter of fact, just this past week, we were talking about awards. I didn't put anything in the awards this year, Blade, and Luke got. I think Luke got best folder in the Knife Makers Guild. Tanner made best hunter. I think Tim Robertson got best multi blade or stuff. And someone asked him, Bill, why don't you put anything? He said, he said I've won that, and I said I don't have anything to prove. I don't. He's very humble. He said let someone else do that. He said I've been there, I've done that. And I'll help someone get there. So I think it was just, it's just a feather in his hat, and he's wearing it very, very proudly.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to him. I talked to him before Blade Show Texas about at some point in time coming on the show. I'd really like to be able to interview him and
He interviews good too. You got to get him on. He's good. You know.
yeah. Well, since you guys are neighbors, you help me with that, so I don't bug him so much.
No, I can handle that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what the thing that's interesting is from what I understood about the Slipjoint Cartel and everything, because you guys have like bards sing the story of how the Slipjoint Cartel got started. It was basically that a group of y'all would go over and have meetings and things like that with Bill. And at a point in time, because everybody was asking questions and re-asking questions and things, Bubba got the idea that why don't you guys just start a group chat, like a text message, to be able to talk to each other about it rather than occupy Bill's time, because as he's getting up in age, he has his knives that he has to get out for orders and other things, and he also has to be able to make a living at that too. So you guys started talking and educating each other and sharing different ideas and things, and that just formed into the cartel.
It's a it's a tough group to be in. Some of our conversations, you can't have thin skin in our group text because everyone sees the bad in what you do, and they're quick to point it out. But it's all very, very, very good constructed. I mean, no one gets mad and nothing like that. It's just like you got to be thin skinned because whatever you put out there, that 12 or 14 or 15 people is going to read it, and they're going to read what they want into it, and they're going to, give you back what maybe not necessarily what you want to hear, but it's a really fun group. Sometimes it gets kind of daunting because I'll look down and I'll be 30 or 40 texts behind, but I don't have the time in my day job. I don't have the time to just that's it. And you go back through them and see, or if I have a technical question, Bill might answer it. Bubba might answer it. Tim Roberts might answer, or Tom Plot at any one time. We all see it. And someone might ring in and say, "Well, you need to do this," or "That looks great, but you need to do this," or if I have an issue going on, one of the 12 or 14 that's on that text list, somebody will know something, help you out, and that's really how that deal started, and of course we're all friends too. I mean, we're it's pretty tight knit group, I guess you'd say. You just you don't put an application in to become one. We are who we are, and we're pretty tight knit.
Yeah. So when it comes to your own making and everything, what's kind of next for you? Is there anything specifically in slip joint making or knife making in general that you're like that is the next big thing?
Well, it's funny you ask that. As a whole, as an industry whole, in the last 5 years I've been, it just seems like everybody's gotten way better. I mean, even the new kids that they're doing some things that I wished I could do. It's slip joint making right now is on the rise, and even like some of these tactical makers, they're realizing it and they're making slip joints. So, with that being said, I don't know. At Blade, I bought some newer, better equipment. Thursday, I bought a different surface grinder. So I'm going to have two surface grinders. I upgraded some equipment. Of course, you got to buy handle material every time you get to a Blade or somewhere, or go by see Charles Turnage is one of our friends. I can get mammoth from him anytime, or he'll send a box to us and we go through it, or he'll come to the bills and put a table out. So with all that being said, I'm trying to get my best quality equipment I can afford, And I'm just going to try to. I never was a big Damascus guy. Bubba does a lot of Damascus. Bill, other people do a lot of Damascus, but Damascus is so interesting to me. I'm never going to make it, but I can buy whatever I want. But it just dresses the knife so much. This past blade, I made a Damascus River Bill Burke River of Fire axe handle, and you know it it just really. I mean, it really got me going. I mean, I really enjoyed making it. Of course, it's very unique. It's Rick Dunkerley and Bill Ruple's pattern, and they were or I was lucky enough that they shared the pattern with me. And it's a very unique pattern, and a couple of people's made renditions of it. And but I kind of knocked it out of the park on it, and I think I'm going to try to go. I don't want to. I want to make high end user knives. Is what I want to. I don't want to make art knives, which I made a set of knives that George Levinson had, and he has Windy City, and I think they recently just sold. They were kind of Art Deco knives. They were fat carbon copper, and they were layered. It was carbon fiber, black carbon fiber layered in copper, and those knives look Art Deco, and I really enjoyed making those. But it's kind of not who I am. So I'm going to kind of gravitate more to doing quite a bit more of Damascus. I made a doctor's knife here for blade, and I love straight lines. I love making Barlows. My Barlow is probably my favorite build. A little doctor's knife, and then of course the trappers. And this axe handle is really unique. I'm gonna make a few more of those. Of course, I'm not gonna make 15 of them. I'm just gonna make as it go. But I like the Barlow's doctor knives. I like the smaller knives, and that's I think I'm just going to just try to up my game and just try to keep making every knife a little bit better than the last one, and I'm not a big firework guy down to like the back of the spring and blades like Bubba and Toby does it really good. Tanner Couch is probably the best. Tanner and Kendall Shorsh are probably the best file people I know. I mean, they can do it in minutes, and it looks like it took them hours. But that's really not, that's something artistic that I can do it, but I think I like more fit and function. I want my knives to be as flawless as possible, and every time I make a knife, I know every one of my little flaws in it, and you hand it to somebody and they don't ever see them, or someone like Bill might see them, but I know they're there, and I want to work on just becoming. I'm not a super perfectionist, but I just want to work on trying to make the best knife I can possibly can, the most clean knife. I started to do a lot of smooth back knives, and those are the hardest, because you can't hide the flaws. It's got to be pretty perfection, and that's where I'm gravitating toward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so typically, to wind down our shows, I ask this of everybody, but given your meteoric rise to fit and finish and quality and everything, I'd like to ask you, do you have any words of advice for new makers, especially getting into slip joints? Any advice that you found helpful when you were getting started?
I've taught a few classes now, and I'm really new to the business, as you say. I'm probably 5 years into it, but because of the people I've had around me, first off, for everyone out there, get the best quality equipment you can buy. And now it doesn't have to be Bird King, or it don't have to be high end, but just buy the best quality equipment you can, and that's from drill presses, grinders. I have a Northern Tool grinder, and I have an Outlaw grinder with Matt Humphreys, and Matt Humphreys is in our deal too. The Paragon reps there. I have those grinders. I have as best quality as I can get. I got a couple of now. I got two Chevalier surface grinders, and they're real high end grinders. Once you get your equipment, it's just attention to detail. If you have somebody that's a maker around you, and they're willing, go to their shop. Don't be in their way. You can look over their shoulder. I learn more out looking over someone's shoulder than I do asking really the question. Or them showing me. You see techniques, and every I think every builder has had that person. For me, I have multiples. I'm fortunate enough to go to 3 or 4 shops just within miles, and I think that's key. And it's hard to learn on your own. So ask questions. I mean, as a whole, there's a few people that are real tight-lipped on what to do, and there's a few techniques that I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I may indicate how I am, but it's something that if I do it myself, now if it's a worldwide known, well, I'll tell you exactly how to do it. I mean, there are those few techniques that I kind of keep, and everyone else does as well. But I think as a new maker, you need to surround yourself or self, or and if you have the opportunity to go to someone's shop or if they invite you, lean on someone, and it puts you so much further ahead quickly than if you just try to figure it out on your own. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's really good advice. I mean, I appreciate that because you know, I have I'm subject to this too, where I build in isolation, where I don't really go to people's shops. Like Tim Robertson is the only shop I've really been to see anybody make knives, and he always blows me away with how he thinks about things technically. And so we've become really good friends over that.
And Tim is a technical guy. He uses quite a few jigs, and he'll be the first to say, "Well, I don't build knives like you guys do." And he's been building for probably 30 years as well, and he's kind of self-taught, and he knows what works for him, and he's the one that got us into using pantographs. He's our pantograph man. That's kind of how our connection to Tim is, and of course he's a good machinist, I guess you would say. And I had to learn all that. And hey, it's easy whenever you know someone like that, and you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got this going on. Well, do this, or try this, and people like that are invaluable. I mean, you just, and like I say, in a whole in the industry, everyone's pretty much forthright on helping you. There's a few, I'm sure there's a few that they're going to clam up when you ask them something, but that's on them. Me, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I mean, I'll tell you what I do know. That's all I can tell you is what I know. And I think that's big deal. And like when I started, big help to me, and it's because of Luke Swinson and Chris Crawford. Luke has a slip joint video that him and Chris Crawford did, and it skips over a lot of little things. Well, you can't take 12 or 14 hours of knife making and put it in an hour and a half of video, DVD. But that thing is invaluable. I watch it. I still today watch it. Once or twice. Every few months I'll watch it just to watch it. And then Chris Crawford also got with Bill Ruple on multi blade. He's done someone else as well. And I don't know what those videos cost you $70. It's so worth the money. Because it's just techniques, and they show you, and it's visual. I'm a visual guy. You can tell me, and I kind of understand it. But if I see it, it'll stick to me a little better.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, I really appreciate you spending the time talking with us and shooting the hay.
Oh man, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a good evening. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll talk again soon.
Let's do. And it was my pleasure. And anytime you need something, don't hesitate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Good Old Blades podcast. Remember that you are loved, and God bless.